Now, of course, the big news today is Vault 7. They're calling it bigger than Edward Snowden. You wouldn't know that from looking on the front page of CNN as of about an hour ago, because there's nothing whatsoever about the story. The biggest news story in America today, the biggest surveillance story, people are saying, for probably a decade or more, bigger than Edward Snowden. What was that, 4 years ago? Not a single story about this on the front page of CNN. There
That's right,
might be
Paul. And
now.
let me just jump in because this is so important to all of us. We have the Infowars.com article you wrote and others we can put up on screen. Former CIA analyst Obama gave green light for NSA CIA to sabotage Trump. We use Facebook and Twitter to get this out, but folks, don't just count on that. Send the actual URL to everyone you know saying this is censored. They don't want you to know that the government rogue is targeting our president, trying to stop him. They are so scared of you. When I say spread these links, this is a war, people. So there it is, Infowars.com. That's why we jump around on Facebook, Google, Twitter, YouTube, all of it, because we're constantly being censored. People say, well, why don't you leave it? We are saying leave to Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com, but they're after those. They cut off our sponsorship on Google Ads, banned last week. Roger Stone was banned. They're after us. It's a war with criminals that hijacked the government, and we're going to kick Zuckerberg and Eric Schmidt's goddamn asses. Go ahead, Paul. Spread the links. They're not going to win, these pieces of trash. Think they own us and our families while they run slave camps all over the world and suicide factories in China? Apple scum? Go ahead.
It's absolutely incredible because, again, they're the biggest progenitors of fake news. The most harmful fake news imaginable. They're always behind it. And we saw another example just last week with Trump's big speech in front of Congress. You had during the 2 minutes applause.
They run Chinese death camps. They hate us and our families. Zuckerberg hates everyone. So does Schmidt. They're the enemy. So's Obama. God, people.
So you had Karen Owens, the widow of the military veteran who was killed. You know, she got the 2 minute standing ovation. Who wasn't standing for that ovation? Well, it was Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Ellison, the vice DNC chair. There was a journalist there at Trump's congressional speech who was constantly watching the Democrats, their reaction, the fact that they didn't clap anything, basically. He tweeted when this happened, Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Ellison did not stand for the elongated 2 minute applause of Karen Owens, the military widow. Fake news came out basically an hour or two after he tweeted this, called him a liar, set the entire Twitter sick mob, the witch hunt specialists, on this journalist because he tweeted that Wasserman Schultz and Ellison did not stand for the 2 minute applause of Karen Owens. They said they did stand. That was the first instance where she was applauded briefly. So she was applauded twice. The first one, they stood. The second elongated applause, where you had Karen Owens standing up crying, that was the big news story. Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Ellison did not stand. Yet the media, the fake news media, went after this journalist, claiming he was putting out fake news when he was completely accurate. You can read all about it. Here's the story. I reported facts from Trump's address to Congress. People who didn't like those facts called it fake news. So again, he goes through. There were two applauses. The first one, yes, they stood. The second elongated applause for Karen Owens, the military widow of fallen Navy SEAL Ryan Owens, they did not stand for that at any point. That's shocking. That's a news story. He tweeted it out. They came after him within hours saying that he was putting out fake news and that they did stand for this 2 minutes applause. Complete BS. Once again, mainstream media caught putting out fake news while they call us fake news, while Facebook now directly censors our articles, as you've just seen. So you've got fake news across the board. You now have CNN. And this is happening probably at once every 2 weeks now. At what point does it stop being a coincidence? You had someone get on CNN talking about the link between terrorism and refugees, the link between terror attacks and migrants, the fact that the FBI says 30% of their domestic terrorism cases that they're investigating have links to refugees. Somebody gets up on CNN and says this, and they're cut off within seconds, just a coincidence. In fact, we've got this clip if we can go to it right now.
Congress now investigating President Trump's explosive claims of being wiretapped by the Obama administration.
That's Napolitano. We need to go to the CNN. Yeah, we'll get the right clip in a second. This is American Mirror. The headline is CNN cuts feed right after guest cites refugee crime stats. During a segment on Donald Trump's travel ban from terror-prone countries, the news network mysteriously lost its guest as he made a point about refugees. This is the clip. We have it right now.
Important for our security. And I think the people overwhelmingly in the country want that as well, too, because, again, just today, the FBI comes out and says that 30% of their domestic terrorism cases that they're investigating are from folks who are refugees. It's important not to label all refugees bad people. That's not why I'm here. But
I was just going to say, Congressman, it's time to go, but I think the TV gremlins did that for us. Thank you very much to the Congressman for joining us.
Hey, whoops. Now, if it happened in isolation, if it only happened that one time, maybe a couple of other times over the course of, 3 or 4 years, you would say that's just a coincidence. This has happened on CNN probably about 5 times in the past, 4 or 5 months. You had the instance where the reporter was talking about, Hillary Clinton's super predator comment. That was cut. You had Bernie Sanders get up there just 2 or 3 weeks ago. He starts talking about fake news. He got cut. You had, I think it was a congressman talking about the WikiLeaks revelations right before the election. He was on with Chris Cuomo. He got cut. There are other examples in this American Mirror article. They go through them. Every time somebody starts to get onto a talking point which crushes their narrative, like the link between terrorism and refugees, again, the FBI says 30% of their domestic terrorism cases are related to migrants, to refugees. He suddenly goes, bye-bye, just a coincidence. And CNN, as I discussed earlier, has now come out and completely disavowed this fake news term. They're saying it doesn't work. Of course, months ago, we featured the stories, I think it was in the Washington Post, where they admitted this fake news term has been appropriated by the people who we're accusing of being fake news, and it's being used against us. And of course, the pioneer of that was Donald Trump himself. So probably 2 or 3 months ago now, they realized that this was only damaging them, that fake news was becoming a synonym for the mainstream media. So now they're having to change the term. This is up on Milo Yiannopoulos' website. CNN invents new phrase for fake news, promptly gets accused of that too. There you see the Washington Post talking about fake news. But CNN has apparently abandoned the fake news slur after it blew up in their face horrendously. The Reliable Sources Twitter account tweeted the following video earlier today explaining the flaws of the fake news slur. Following that video's release, which we're going to play here in a second, Twitter users began proclaiming hashtag CNN has VD, which I'm proud to say that I started. No word yet on whether President Donald Trump will recognize CNN's new status as a viral deception platform. So CNN has renamed fake news as viral deception as VD, literally sounds like a sexual disease. Again, because they acknowledge this fake news slur only boomeranged and blew up in their own faces. Not just because we used it against them in an ad hominem manner like they did against us, but because you had the Stanford University study, which again showed that, quote, fake news had no impact on the US presidential election. No noticeable impact. So whereas, it's a back and forth between the alternative media and the mainstream media calling each other fake news, you actually dig down underneath this narrative and you realize it's completely phony to begin with. Their whole narrative was that Donald Trump won the election because of Russian hacking, no evidence for that, and because of fake news, manipulating American voters. Stanford University study, not exactly a right-wing outfit, found that, quote, fake news had no impact on the US presidential election. Narrative debunked. Now they're having to disavow the term altogether they've renamed it VD. Let's go to this CNN clip. Do we have the clip? All right, we'll try and get that in a minute. But yeah, it just shows you the absolute desperation that's taking hold. Again, as of an hour ago, Vault 7, what they're calling a bigger story than the Edward Snowden revelations, and CNN on their front page, again, maybe different now, but as of an hour ago, after this story had already been out for hours, they did not have one single story on Vault 7. Absolutely incredible. Is it any wonder that they get called fake news? Is it any wonder that they're having to change terms, change definitions? And now, as you saw, Facebook just outright censoring Infowars.com articles altogether. You know, we had it before where, I think it was on Twitter or Facebook, where we would post a picture of an ISIS fighter to illustrate a news article about ISIS, and they would delete the article claiming that it was ISIS propaganda. You know, similar to how they're now opening up charges for Marine Le Pen. They've removed protection so charges could happen, where she posts ISIS photos of them, for example, burning the Jordanian pilot in the cage as evidence that ISIS is a threat. And now they say that that is spreading ISIS propaganda. She could be charged for that. Absolutely ridiculous. But they've done that on social media for years. Now they're bypassing that altogether and just censoring Infowars links as soon as you post them by declaring them spam. No one can share them. No one can comment on them. Again, that was going viral, that particular article on the Alex Jones Facebook page. It got through there. I have to check back, see if they've deleted it there as well. But on my page, which, you know, has another 450,000 followers, gone. Memory hold. This is the fake news war that is now heating up. And of course, it's to target not just news organizations, but people like WikiLeaks. Remember, we had that whole narrative about how they wanted to define WikiLeaks as fake news. They wanted to suggest that the Podesta emails were fake, that they weren't real. They tried that. That failed. Now we have Vault 7, massive revelations coming out, particularly about the CIA exploring ways to hack vehicles in order to carry out undetectable assassinations. This is up on Infowars.com. Newly released documents by WikiLeaks reveal that the CIA explored hacking the control systems of modern vehicles, potentially to carry out undetectable assassinations. So, the quote from WikiLeaks, as of October 2014, the CIA was looking at infecting the vehicle control systems used by cars and trucks, again, to engage in nearly undetectable assassinations. Well, what happened to Michael Hastings? He wrote an article 11 days before a mysterious car crash entitled, "Why Democrats Love to Spy on Americans." 11 days before his car crash. Isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting that Michael Hastings was working on a big expose of the CIA, was receiving death threats, was basically running away from government agents days before his car crash? We'll be back on the Alex Jones Show live. Don't go away. We are back live, and as you saw before the breaks, Facebook is now directly censoring Infowars.com articles. We've complained about this for many years. Sometimes it's been redressed after pressure. Now they're just censoring right at the source. This is the only way they can try and defeat us, because they're losing when it comes to having an actual fair argument on a level playing field. We're kicking their butts over and over again on every single issue, so they have to play dirty. And, you know, liberals will say, oh, it's a private company, they can... Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it, that liberals are only for the rights of private companies when those private companies are censoring conservatives. They don't have that same zeal for supporting the private rights of private companies. You know, when, for example, a bakery refuses to bake a gay wedding cake, oh, then private companies have no rights whatsoever. They have to do whatever they're told. But not when it comes to censoring conservatives. That one little facet in isolation, then they're really for the private rights of companies. Interesting that, isn't it? Very interesting. Given that Twitter now, Facebook as well, they want to be considered as public utilities, it's basically coming to the point where, you know, it would be akin to them shutting off your landline phone because you posted things on the internet which the government didn't like. That's the level that it's coming to. If they want to be considered public utilities, then fine. We'll treat you as one. You can't censor people for posting articles about ex-CIA analysts who come out and say that Trump's right, that Obama did order the spying, that it was ordered for the CIA and the NSA to sabotage Trump's embryonic administration. Perfectly legitimate news story, not intended to deceive, not created, under false pretenses simply to get advertising clicks. Completely genuine, legitimate, real news story, censored by Facebook at its source. It's no longer hyperbole. We're under attack every single day, and that's why we need your support. Again, by getting the products at InfoWarsStore.com. We have free shipping on everything across the board this week only. Free shipping on absolutely everything. And you can get the ultimate paleo formula, Caveman, in addition to free shipping for 33% off. This is the ultimate in true paleo nutrition. You have the bone broth, turmeric root, chaga mushroom, and 7 total primal superfoods in a single great tasting formula. It is Caveman. It's available right now for 33% off the introductory price at InfoWarsStore.com. This is cutting edge nutraceutical science and ancient nutrition added to that to increase potency and maximize benefits. It is Caveman True Paleo Formula. It is 33% off. Free shipping of that available at InfoWarsStore.com. We need your support now more than ever. This is not a cliche. This is not hyperbole. We're under attack. We just gave you yet another example of that 20 minutes ago. Please support us by getting the products at InfoWarsStore.com. Again, free shipping on absolutely everything for this week only at InfoWarsStore.com. Now we have that video ready. This is Brian Stelter, CNN, talking about how their fake news narrative has been completely overturned, boomeranged back on them, blew up in their face. So now they're having to redefine it. Let's go to the clip.
We talked a lot in this program about fake news, and I know that's a term that you detest. Why is that? What should we be calling made-up stories instead?
I'd like to call them viral deception, and I'd like to use the VD acronym because I'd like to associate it with venereal disease.
Venereal disease.
We don't want to get venereal disease. If you find someone who's got it, you want to quarantine them and cure them. You don't want to transmit it. By virtue of saying fake news, we ask the question, well, what is real news? And you invite people to label everything they disapprove of fake news. As a result, it's not a useful concept. What are we really concerned about? Deception, and deception of a certain sort that goes viral.
Right.
Much of that deception isn't actually imitating news. It's imitating news-like structures. It's narrative in form. But nonetheless, if we say we're only concerned with fake news, we may be missing a lot of things that are going viral that are deceptive, and many things that are found in quasi-fake news sites. That is, they're appropriating the credibility of news, trying to look like the CNN website, for example, aren't only found there, sometimes aren't.
So there you have it. Hashtag CNN has VD, hashtag CNN has VD. That actually, somebody told me it started trending last night on Twitter. I don't know, I was in bed at the time, but let's turn this one back on them as well. If they want to play more games, we'll play more games. Of course, what's really fake news is when the fake news mainstream media went after this reporter and claimed he was lying when he tweeted out that Wasserman Schultz and Keith Ellison didn't stand for the 2-minute applause of the military widow during Trump's speech. That was completely true. They didn't stand, but the fake news mainstream media came out and attacked this journalist. They sicked the Twitter outrage mob on him when he was completely accurate. You know what's fake news? It's fake news when the media comes out and says that Trump supporters were waving Russian flags at CPAC. A lot of fake news journalists came out and said that. It was completely inaccurate. They were given these flags by a leftist organization that had crashed the event. Then they instantly took a picture of them. They didn't include that in the article because they were putting out fake news. It was fake news when the mainstream media said that 300,000 people attended an anti-Trump protest in London. That didn't happen. Only around 2,000 people attended that protest a couple of weekends ago. Again, fake news. BuzzFeed came out a few weeks ago and said that the deep state doesn't exist. Literally said it was a conspiracy theory, that there were elements within the NSA and CIA that were trying to sabotage Trump. Said the deep state itself was a conspiracy theory, okay? That's fake news. You have CNN coming out about a month ago saying that Le Pen is winning in France because Russia is interfering in the French election. Again, completely fake news. You know, the Trump Pissgate dossier. Completely fake news. They get caught in the most egregious, damaging fake news over and over again. So yes, they've earned the moniker fake news, and now they don't like it. So they're trying to change it into VD. CNN has VD. Hashtag CNN has VD. Let's make that blow up in their face as well. Absolutely incredible. Of course, another thing they would have labeled fake news back in 2006 when we first reported on it is the fact that the government was using microphones in mobile phones, in computers, in smart televisions to spy on people's conversations. They would have called that fake news when we put it out. In fact, they did call us conspiracy theorists when we published that 11 years ago. 11 years before this current controversy with Vault 7 and WikiLeaks. And I posted the original article from 2006 up on Twitter today. This was written 11 years ago, okay? Government industry to use computer microphones to spy on 150 million Americans. Private industry and eventually government is planning to use microphones in the computers of an estimated 150 million plus internet active Americans to spy on their lifestyle choices, build psychological profiles which will be used for surveillance and Minority Report style invasive advertising and data mining. So again, September 2006, we put out what WikiLeaks is now reporting on from these leaked CIA documents, that they were planning to, and in fact did, use smart televisions, cell phones, and computers, use the microphones to spy on people's conversations. They would have called us conspiracy theorists, fake news outlets for reporting on that 11 years ago. And then you just flashed up there briefly, back in 2012, and this gets even more specific, we put out the article with the headline, Samsung TVs can be hacked to spy on viewers. December 14, 2012. What, four and a bit years before this came out today. With the exact same information, the CIA using Samsung smart TVs to spy on people's conversations via the microphone embedded in the TV, with people thinking that they've turned them off and they're not even turned off. So over 4 years ago, Infowars.com reported on that specifically, Samsung TVs being used to spy on people's conversations. We reported on it again in November 2014 with this headline, Samsung Smart TV records personal conversations and sends them to third parties. They admitted in their own privacy policy, a 46-page document, that all newly purchased Samsung Smart TVs had voice recognition technology that, quote, may capture voice commands and associated text in order to improve the features of the system. They go on to state, again, we report this in 2014, they go on to state, spoken words, including personal or other sensitive information, that information will be among the data captured and transmitted to a third party through your use of voice recognition. Turns out that one of those third parties was the Central Intelligence Agency. At least that's implied and suggested by this Vault 7 WikiLeaks release today. So again, we would have been called conspiracy theorists and fake news for reporting on Samsung recording people's personal conversations via microphones embedded in smart TVs. We reported on it in 2012. We reported on it in 2014. And in fact, you can go back 11 years to 2006 when we reported that government was going to use these microphones that would then be connected to the internet via the Internet of Things to record people's conversations, because as we know, and we've known it since the late 90s, Echelon, the NSA, has been storing all this information. We've known about it the whole time. And in fact, we've got a clip from Judge Napolitano talking about that. He was on Fox and Friends this morning. Napolitano basically laid it out. He said that the intelligence community, the deep state, which BuzzFeed says doesn't exist, they're terrified of an investigation into Obama spying on Trump, not really because of the current concerns over that, the contemporary concerns over that, but because it would reveal the fact that mass surveillance of Americans has been taking place basically for decades now, that every single text message, every single conversation, every single email is being digitally recorded. Are they being listened to in real time? Well, William Binney says yes. They probably don't have the capability to do that for absolutely everyone, but they're being digitally recorded. Keywords will flag the system. If you say one of the keywords, one of the naughty words, they will flag your file, and your personal conversations will be spied on, will be cataloged. And that's what Napolitano was talking about on Fox News today. Yesterday, a bunch of people came out, including Bob Beckel, one of the most loathsome individuals out there, on Fox News, and said, this is just a massive conspiracy theory. How dare Trump say that Obama spied on him? Why doesn't he produce the evidence? All he needs to do is get the FISA record, because he would have had to put it through that process to spy on Donald Trump. Well, as Judge Napolitano explained there, no, he didn't. Obama can directly order his attorney general to spy on Donald Trump directly. We know they spied on General Flynn. That's completely admitted. We know they were spying on Trump Tower when it came to Paul Manafort and his supposed business dealings with the Russians. So we know they were spying on Trump Tower in those two separate instances. But it's a massive fake news conspiracy theory to even suggest that Obama may have ordered Donald Trump himself to be surveilled. They're literally trying to make that argument as if it's, completely out of the ordinary that anyone could even suggest this. Even though they've done it to Manafort, they did it to General Flynn. So no, it's not out of the ordinary. And in fact, later on in that clip, Judge Napolitano went on to say that, he does think that Obama ordered Donald Trump to be spied on. And we know that they're keeping all the information anyway. That's the point. All of our records are being documented, are being cataloged, are being warehoused in giant facilities by the NSA, not just the metadata, but actual details of emails and conversations. And you can go to this article on Infowars.com. Investigation into Obama spying on Trump would reveal mass surveillance of all Americans. You can go there and link through. I've linked directly to the BBC article from 1999, 18 years ago, where the Australian government admits they were part of an NSA-led global intercept and surveillance program called Echelon that could listen to, quote, every international telephone call, fax, email, or radio transmission on the planet. That was BBC in 1999, and we're still having this argument about mass surveillance. It's incredible. We'll be back with the final segment of the Alex Jones Show, breaking news at Infowars.com. Few final news stories. Information Liberation reports headstones at Jewish cemetery fell over from poor maintenance, had been toppled for years. Oh dear. This doesn't look very good for their narrative. Now recall that for the past few weeks, they've been spinning these bomb threats aimed against Jewish community centers, suggesting that Donald Trump and his supporters were to blame for it. That kind of died a death on Friday when it emerged that a partisan left-wing anti-Trump weirdo was responsible for at least some of those threats. Juan Thompson, he in fact had been busy just a couple of days before, as I mentioned in the article about it, retweeting hate about me. So it's particularly enjoyable to be loathed by such horrible individuals. Talk about a narrative fail. You had a Islam convert, anti-Trump, hysterical left-wing journalist being exposed as being responsible for the bomb threats against Jewish community centers. Now it turns out that some of the headstones at Jewish cemeteries that are now being turned over, apparently vandalized, were in fact that way because of environmental conditions and poor maintenance. So again, another narrative fail. American Mirror reports Trump executive order requires published reports on migrant honor killings. President Donald Trump's new executive order temporarily pausing immigration from 6 nations, which are compromised by terrorism, now includes a section mandating the government to release reports on crimes committed by migrants, which will include so-called honor killings of women. The feminists are not going to like this one. God forbid Donald Trump would expose how women are being killed. They'd rather just chant Allah Akbar and worship the religion of peace. They're not going to like that one bit. They're not going to like this either. Out of Breitbart, war correspondent says Mosul safer for women than Sweden. Award-winning war correspondent Magda Gad has tweeted from Mosul that the war-torn city is safer for women and more peaceful than Sweden's capital city of Stockholm. She says it's safer for women to walk around at night. But again, according to the left, Sweden is a safe, peaceful bastion as they invite in hundreds of thousands of more migrants. We have RT reporting 11 rioters arrested after hurling rocks at police and TV crew during Swedish school brawl. Turns out that they, once again, were migrants. Imagine my shock. New data, liberal utopia Sweden sees huge bump in molestation in 2016. Guess why? 2 guesses. First 2 don't count. It's migrants. Once again, the liberal utopia of Sweden is melting down. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. Breaking news at Infowars.com.